everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Carolyn Talks. I'm your host, Carolyn Hayes, film critic and journalist, and this is the podcast / YouTube channel where I speak to film creatives around the world about their work, the industry, and what inspires them. And today, I am joined by director Kim Taeyang and the cast of his film Mimang, Lee Myung-ha, Seong-guk, and Park Bong-jun, who are here with me in Toronto to discuss the world premiere of Mimang at the 2023 Toronto International Film Festival. I am so happy to have them here with me to talk to them. And you'll be hearing Mark translating between myself and the team. So thank you, Mark, for working with us today. And thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. So after this, you will hear the group. My first question is going to be, what is it about conversations you love? Because this film is about conversations. And so that's going to be my first question for you. What is it about conversations that you love, and why did you decide to make a film about conversations?
일단 첫 번째 질문은 대화 왜 사랑하는지, 그리고 왜 대화에 대한 영화 만들었는지.
기본적으로 감독님이 투머치 토커.
대화를 사랑해.
정말 사랑하는 사람.
소통하는 걸 사랑하고.
사실 저는 이미지적인 영화를 너무 하고 싶은데 이 첫 번째 영화로서 너무 말을 많이 하고 싶었어서 실험한다라는 생각으로 대사 라인을 한번 연습하는 느낌으로 시도해봤던 건 확실히 있어요. 그래서 대사가 좀 더 많았고, 그래서 대사를 쓸 때 중의적으로 쓰려고 했고, 또 시적으로 표현하려고 많이 애썼던 것 같아요.
Is it okay if I just translate as?
No, yeah, you can translate as you go on.
So first of all, our director Seong-guk mentioned that our director is a big talker. He never shuts up. He's just talking all the time. He loves talking in real life, so it kind of reflects just his normal personality. And this is his first feature film, so he had so much that he wanted to say. So he tried to cram a lot of it into his film through the dialogue. And he also wanted to experiment with writing the script that he wrote and give it some kind of poetic quality. So in doing that, the writing came out in long-form conversation.
And it took, from what I read, it took 4 years to make this film. So 4 years to make a film about conversations is interesting, because I'm also a talker. I love to talk, which is why I do what I do. But like they say, every conversation has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And to do it over 4 years, what was the most challenging thing about that? Because you have to make sure the conversations flow. There's a rhythm to the conversations, and there's a purpose to the conversations. So how did you not lose that over 4 years?
한번 이해할 수 있게 내가 설명할게. 이제 일단 본인도 이 터킹하는 거 너무 좋아하고 자기도 빅마우스예요. 그래서 공감되고. 그 다음에 근데 대화, 그러니까 4년 동안 이 대화에 대해서 영화 찍는 게 뭐 우리가 익숙한 대화가 어떤 비기닝 시작도 있고 중간도 있고 어떤 마무리 있는데, 어떻게 4년 동안 이 대화를 이제 이끌어갈 수 있었는지에 대한 어떤 코멘트 있으면.
그 시작점은 대화를 할 때 성국이가 저한테 얘기를 하면 그걸 기억했다가 언젠가 이 얘기를 어디서 들었는지 까먹는 거죠. 이 친구가 저한테 얘기했는지를. 그래서 제가 누군가한테 대화를 할 때 이제 마치 내 얘기인 것처럼 얘기를 하게 되는 거예요. 그리고 이 친구도 언젠가 그걸 까먹고 다시 다른 사람한테 얘기하게 되는 거죠. 그것들을 좀 표현하고 싶었어요. 그래서 4년이라는 시간 동안 그 대화의 과정이 그 이야기가 옮겨 다니는 것들, 그거를 집중하기 위해서 4년이 필요했던 것 같고, 그렇게 집중하면서 대사를 조금씩 비슷하게 하지만 달라지는 느낌으로 썼어요.
We can say that this conversation started with our lead actor Seong-guk, and they picked up the conversation there, and slowly it moved over to Bong-jun, and from there it went to Myung-ha. So this conversation, just like in real life, sometimes you forget where a conversation ends and where it starts, and sometimes the participants in the conversation change over time. Yeah. So to capture that all of that, he said he needed 4 years to really get it down.
No, it's true, because sometimes you can start a conversation with someone like in school,
Yeah.
And then you meet them years down the road, and you'll be like, I remember. Did you remember this conversation we had? And you continue that thread, and the experiences that you have over time add to that conversation, which is what happens in this film. Like the experiences that all of these characters have feed into the conversations, and it feeds into their interactions, because they some of the interactions are uneasy, and some of them are comfortable, and some of them feel insecure. Like there's moments where the characters feel insecure with each other, and like they know each other for a long time, but they're still unsure, uneven footing, and that's because of the time. So I want you to talk about developing that aspects of the characters, because I think that's really interesting, where it shows like as human beings we're never really sure sometimes of our positions in each other's lives, but in doing that in conversations, you're like learning about each other and learning about things that you never expected to learn. So talk about developing that with the actors and working with each other and finding that rhythm in the conversation over years, because while the film is because this film is set over 4 years, and because you did write a script, you're essentially living it as the actors. You're doing the same thing over 4 years, and you got to pick up that rhythm again.
오케이.
Yeah.
그 저기 뭐 예를 들면 예시로 뭐 학교에 있는 친구 있으면 만나고 어떤 대화 그때 나눴던 얘기도 기억하고 다시 까먹고 그거 마침 뭐 이렇게 느꼈던 것 같고, 근데 그거 통해 그 경험에 대해서 쌓여서 이렇게 그 대화한테 또 추가되고 이렇게 인생 변화가면서 막 이렇게 풍부해지고, 그래서 이 영화 보면서 뭐 어떤 장면은 약간 둘이 아는데 뭐 어떤 역사도 있고 불편한 대화도 하면서 막 서로 좀 알아가는, 또 오랜만에 알아가는 뭐 이런 대화도 있었고, 어떨 때 되게 심플 이지하게 편하게 막 옛날 친구처럼 이렇게 대화하듯이 좀 나오고, 그래서 이런 바탕으로 그 캐릭터 디벨롭먼트, 그 캐릭터 어떻게 만들었는지, 어떻게 같이 이렇게 일을 했는지, 왜냐면 자기한테 약간 4년 동안 이게 실제로 살면서 어차피 같이 협업하는 게 어떤 대화인 거고, 그거에 대한, 특히 캐릭터 디벨롭먼트에 대한 어떤 코멘트 있으면.
일단 저 먼저 얘기를 하자면 사실 특별히 캐릭터를 연구할 필요가 없이 저랑 되게 맞닿아 있는 인물이라고 생각을 했어요. 실제로 대화를 많이 하면서 만들어진 장면도 많고 하다 보니까, 그래서 어떤 캐릭터를 일부러 만들어야겠다 뭐 그런 생각을 하기보다는 저로서 많이 접근을 해가지고 했던 것 같아요, 저는. 그래서 실제로 저의 가까운 지인이 감독님이 너를 굉장히 많이 아는 사람인 것 같다, 잘 아는 사람인 것 같다라고 코멘트를 해줬었거든요.
For Myung-ha, she feels like she didn't need to develop a character because this role is really for her. She put a lot of herself into the role, and she didn't feel like she needed to do much, just present herself as she is. To the point that a close friend of her actually mentioned that, wow, like the director must know you so well to give you this sort of role because it feels like you. So for her, that's the case.
성국?
제 생각에는 저희가 뭐 영화를 같이 하는 감독과 배우의 관계지만 그 이전에 친한 친구의 의미가 있기 때문에 평소에도 영화와 아니면 영화 외적인 삶에 대한 것들을 대화를 굉장히 많이 했다고 생각을 해서 그런 캐릭터라이징이라는 게 조금 자연스럽게 된 느낌이 있었고, 명언의 말처럼 특별히 애를 써서 어떤 구체적인 캐릭터로 접근하기보다는 대화가 자연스럽게 쌓이니까 그게 표현이 그렇게 될 수 있었던 것 같기도 하고, 그리고 실제 우리가 대화하면서 얘기 중에 나왔던 상황들이 촬영 내용이랑 겹칠 때도 있고, 그게 아니고 완전히 새로운 상황이나 이런 게 주어졌을 때도 얘기했던 건 대화가 많았으니까 그걸 그냥 믿을 수 있었던 힘이 좀 있지 않았나 생각을. 맞나요?
그랬던 것 같아요.
So Seong-guk's mentioning that they were good friends before with this film. They're colleagues who have been working together for a long time. And they often have these kind of conversations about life together. So sometimes, so for him, building this character, like fleshing out was pretty easy and felt natural. and that's how the conversation developed and was portrayed in the film. And sometimes it was even funny that like things they had said kind of intersected with some conversations going in the film. So real life was kind of bleeding into this picture.
So the film is kind of meta. It's very meta.
exactly.
Yeah. And for you and for your character.
저는 디벨로핑을 되게 많이 했거든요.
근데 진짜로 많이 했어 봉준.
왜냐하면 원래 난 잘 꼬시는 유려한 사람인데 태양이는 어색하고 뭔가 어버버하는 사람이 나의 모습이다라고 하니까 말이 안 되지. 난 원래는 여자를 잘 꼬시는 사람인데.
그래서 실제로
맞아.
그 촬영 현장에서 이제 봉준이가 그 길을 잃었을 때 태양이가 다시 한번 좀 각인을 시켜주는 그런 상황이 있었던 것 같아요.
나 그 진작에 받으면 어떡해?
톤 같은 거. 아니 너가 그 잘 꼬신다는 사람이 아니라
맞아.
그 약간 톤이라든지 이런 거
맞아.
말투 같은 거에 있어서
맞아.
얘기를 했던 게 지금 기억이 나.
그래서 뭐 나한테 진지한 면이 있긴 하지만 좀 평소에 이렇게 좀 오히려 올라가는 그런 부분들이 있어서 이제 감독이랑 같이 상의를 해서 좀 낮추고 지금처럼 이렇게 차분한 상태에서 상대방을 배려하는 모습 그런 모습들을 좀 집중적으로 했던 것 같아요.
뭐 여기
마크한테 얘기해버리니까
마카 괜찮다면 조금 더 얘기해도 될까 내가? 그래서 봉준이가 처음에 캐릭터를 준비했을 때 약간 진짜 멋있는 남자 그다음에 다가갔을 때 이 여자한테 나를 되게 차밍하게 보이고 싶다라는 캐릭터로 접근을 했고 그렇게 해서 대사를 처음에 리딩할 때 연습했었는데 그걸 듣고 제가 바로 봉준에게 얘기했던 건 그냥 이 여자에게 집중하고 그다음에 되게 제가 봤을 때는 이 배우의 안에는 섬세하고 배려심 있는 모습들을 끌어내고 싶었고 실제로 그런 게 존재한다고 저는 봤기 때문에 그래서 그 상황에 집중하고 여자에 집중하고 공기에 집중하고 배려 넘치게 했으면 좋겠다라는 걸 주문했었죠.
그걸 잘했지.
그렇게 같이 캐릭터는 만들었던 것 같아요. 봉준과는.
Okay. So it's good. It's a great answer. In the case of Bong-jun, he actually felt like he really needed to work to get this character into the film. So it took some development, different from the other two lead actors. So 잘 고신 유려한 사람 어떻게 번역해야 될까?
막 언변이 좋고 막
바람둥이.
여자들한테
바람둥이.
매력적으로 다가가는 사람.
조심스럽게 좀 하고 싶네 그렇게.
바람둥이라면 재밌었지.
So originally he kind of thought of his character as like a
Like the wind.
more like a player, like a like a cool guy who's
Flighty.
Yeah.
flirty, flirtatious, and super confident, just like a guy who knows that he's gonna get the main actress, right? So, and like that's kind of his character. That's like a mode that he's comfortable fulfilling in his life, right? That's him. And he mentioned that Taeyang, just like looking at the director, Taeyang is more of like a smart film nerd. Everyone has like their different kind of personality. So like that's how he first approached the film and developing his character. But after the first reading, they stopped. There was a moment where they kind of stopped and said, we need to kind of adjust this. And so that, because he can also play like a very serious role. He can turn it on and off, right? And so it was a bit of more work for him to get there. And Taeyang, the director, remarked that, at first it was intended, it was written that he should be kind of a charming, real cool guy, which he is, obviously. But in the reading, he gave him some feedback, which was to just focus as much as he can on the actress herself. Focus on her. Focus on the scene. Focus on the situation. And 배려 어떻게
Polite.
polite.
Yeah.
Be considerate. Be
considerate.
be polite. Be conscious of other people. And that's the character that kind of emerged from the film.
Yeah.
Rather than just like a, hot-headed, like player.
It was more about focusing on her as a person and not just his intent.
Yeah.
That's what he intended to get out from the beginning.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And one of the interesting things about this film is how you use the alleyways and the main road. And there's Admiral, the statue of Admiral Key in Seoul is a central figure, but very abstract. Like all of their interactions kind of converge and meander around this statue. And one of the most interesting conversations in the film is where Seong-guk and they're talking about the history of the roads in Seoul, where the main roads were for the nobles, and the regular people were, and the regular people at that time would have been like, you know what, we are tired of bowing to you every time. We're going to diverge off. And I thought that was kind of like the conversations they had. You know, they have this main topic they want to, or this thing that they're kind of like trying to avoid, like the tension and the relationships, and like they're unsure of their place in each other's lives. So they're a term we use is beating around the bush, where they're avoiding the real situation. So they're like going off onto these side tangents, you know, these side conversations about mentioning things that aren't really that important, and they're avoiding the really main thing. So talk about that aspect of the film, because I think it's an interesting form of storytelling, using the alleyways of the streets to like inform the audience, or inform me anyway, that they're avoiding whatever it is that they are avoiding, you know, whether it's their path, work-wise, their romantic relationships. Because that conversation was funny, because that's when she was telling him about the kids, like she has a child, and all of a sudden, like in order to kind of like avoid it, they start to walk in the alleyways at the same time, and the conversation changes.
Yeah.
Great. So 한국말로 네. 이번 질문은 약간 골목길에 대한 어떤 포인트 찾고 싶은데 이순신도 있고, 근데 이순신보다 이제 그 기자님이 집중하고 싶은 거, 그 골목길의 어떤 상징, 그 길의 역사 대화하는 장면 있잖아. 이렇게 뭐 양반 피막골 골목길 이렇게 피하는 어떤 이런 어떤 모티브, 옛날에 그렇게 했고, 근데 자기가 느꼈을 때 이 각 캐릭터의 대화 속에서도 이렇게 피하는 어떤 길도, 그러니까 그 피막골처럼 이렇게 피할 수도 있지만, 이 어떤 피하는 말도 있잖아.
돌아가는
이렇게 바로 얘기 안 하고 이렇게 막 돌아가고 우리는 beating around the bush, bush는 식물이거든. 근데 안 들어가고 이렇게 왔다 갔다 뭐 이런 어떤 거, 그 골목의 어떤 되게 그 적절한 상징으로 좀 사용했다고 생각했는데, 그런 거에 대한 어떤 코멘트나 뭐 느꼈던 점 있으면
배우들이 먼저 얘기해 볼 수 있는 게 있을까?
아니 먼저.
아 그래?
All of you can answer, because you can. I want you to start first, but I didn't want all of you to answer and say your own interpretations of the scenes, and like how they diverged and avoided the real matter, the real things they wanted to talk about.
그래서 꼭 골목에 대한 코멘트 아니어도 되는데, 각자의 캐릭터 했던 대화에 어떨 때 이제 피하는 말 아니면 피하는 상황, 이렇게 그런 거 좀 상상해서 좀 얘기했으면 좋겠다 하셨어요.
되게
돌려 말한다는 거지.
맞아.
돌려 말은 은유적으로 얘기하고.
그치.
안에 의미가 내포되어 있는 말들 뭐 있을까?
저 먼저 얘기해요.
그럼요.
저는 그냥 그 상황 자체가 제가 항상 떠나는 것 같거든요. 그 영화 안에서. 그거 자체로 좀 설명이 되지 않을까. 뭔가 되려고 하다가 항상 제가 먼저 가요. 그것 자체가 좀 회피? 어쨌든 뭔가 결정되지 않고 이렇게 피하는 걸 보여주는 것 같아요.
저는 이 지점에 대해서 어보이드라든가 피한다라는 게 있지만, 우리가 어떤 상황을 직면했을 때 그 상황에 적합하지 않은 순간인 거지 피하는 게 아니라고 생각했어요. 왜냐면 처음에 명아는 남자에서 헤어지게 될 때 우리는 이입을 하니까 그걸 피한다라고 생각할 수 있는데, 이 여자는 원래부터 서울극장에 가려고 했던 거예요. 그 다음에 집에 마지막에 돌아갈 때도 이 남자를 피한 게 아니라 그 상황이 생겼기 때문에 가야만 했던 거고, 그래서 우리가 살다 보면 뭔가 다 길을 뚫고 나갈 것만 같은 순간들만 있는 게 아니라 어쩔 수 없이 돌아가야 되는 순간들이 생기는 거죠. 그래서 엘리웨이가 생기는 거고 그래서 뒷골목들이 생기는 거고 그것들을 영화 안에서 골목길 그 다음에 이 두 사람들이 카메라가 골목 안에서 이 사람들을 바라보고 또는 이 사람들이 먼저 골목으로 들어가는 것들이 그 동선과 카메라 워킹으로 의도했던 것들이 있었고 그다음에 배우들의 대사 안에서도 사실 너무 잘 말씀해 주셨는데 그 대사의 설계를 이런 식으로 설정을 했던 거죠. 인물들의 설계까지도 여기까지가 제가 할 수 있는 추가할 수 있는 말이었던 것 같고 배우들이 또
근데 이제 그 여자 캐릭터가 감독님이 말씀하신 것처럼 이렇게 의도적으로 회피하려고 했던 건 아니었지만 어떤 그런 상황에서 자기가 원래 의도한 그 일을 하기 위해서 빠지는 것 자체가 보는 관객들은 이렇게 없어졌다라고 생각이 들 것 같고 근데 이제 저도 갑자기 생각나는 게 근데 서울극장에서는 여자가 같이 지하철을 탈 수 있었지만 자기가 선택했다고 생각해요. 서울극장에서
두 번째 파트
두 번째 파트
Myung-ha started out with explaining that her character in particular always seems to be leaving first. In each episode, she's always the first one who's like, okay, I've got to go, and see you later. And it's for her, it kind of felt like she leaves, or life kind of enters at a time when it makes before things are settled. So before the conversation can really be totally, completely hashed out, something happens that kind of forces her in that direction. She leaves. She goes. She exits the conversation, and that kind of her character was like that. And the director wanted to mention that it's less about maybe avoiding something or beating around the bush, but more about it wasn't always the right time to hash that conversation. And a lot of the times they'll be talking, and then the alleyway will open up. They'll have to turn here, or they'll have to. They have to stop and talk about the bus, or so there's things that kind of come in life as we walk around, and that force us to not avoid, but change plans.
Yeah.
Things change, and sorry.
Take it out.
파트 2?
It's good. And this was also reflected not only in the script, like not only in each scene, but the cinematography.
Yes.
This was like one of the major motifs that they really wanted to show across all aspects of the film. So that's the director. And, Myung-ha also wanted to call attention to the fact that in the second part of the three parts, in the end, Bong-jun and her say goodbye to each other at the subway. But that was a point where it was a choice, right? They weren't interrupted. They weren't being interrupted. She just said, like, I'm going to go on my own way. So it's not, I think that they want to point out that it's not always about avoiding or not saying what it is. It's just that life is a little bit messier sometimes.
It is messy, and then sometimes some things come to a natural conclusion. Some things just end naturally. And you mentioned the subway, which I think is interesting because one of the first interactions with the two of you is like she's trying to go to the bus, but they keep walking, and they end up looking for the subway. So for the film to end with that same idea of getting on the subway, which to me, well, unless you're in Toronto anyway, is a faster exit, a more sure exit. So I want all of you to talk, if you want to talk about how these characters have helped you to grow individually over the 4 years you were filming. Because as I said, the film is kind of meta in that it reflects a lot of the experiences and the conversations we had, but how did playing these characters perhaps help you to be better communicators with the people in your life? How, or maybe even as performers, because a big part of acting is communicating with your director, with each other, and then with the audience. So how did having the time, 4 years is, to make a film over 4 years is extremely rare, but having that time, how did it help you to grow individually and as performers and as, I guess you could say, communicators to the people in your lives?
Great. So this question, I'm not a professional.
No, it's okay.
그 개인 인생에 이 질문은 일단 두 파트 있는 것 같아요. 일단 4년 동안 찍었고, 그 다음에 지금까지 약간 계속 얘기했던 대화, 커뮤니케이션. 이 4년 동안 찍으면서 어떻게 자기의 개인 인생 아니면 배우로서 그 선정되었는지, 특히 뭐 커뮤니케이션 더 잘하게 됐는지, 아니면 뭐 어떤 변화는 어떤 점 느꼈으면
4년 동안
배우로서 아니면 개인적으로 이 커뮤니케이션 어떤 주제 가운데 놓고 어떻게 좀 변했던 것 같아?
Anyway, your turn first.
뭔가 얘기할 수 있는 게 너한테 있을 것 같아.
커뮤니케이션.
그거 한 파트였고, 하지만 또 그냥 막 배우로서 어떻게 선정되는지 4년 동안 길게 찍었고 특이하다. 그리고 어떻게 선정됐는지.
일단 뭐 당연한 얘기지만 이게 처음 시작해서 4년 동안 이것만 우리가 하지는 당연하게도 안 했는 거잖아요. 그래서 그 가운데 여러 다른 작업들, 다른 글, 다른 영화, 그리고 다른 어떤 연기를 하는 그 과정들이 분명히 있었고, 중간중간에 이제 우리가 만나면서 이 4년 시간이 걸리긴 했지만 완성하기 위해서 갑자기 생각이 안 나네. 하기 위해서
천천히 해.
나 정리 좀 하고 더 얘기할게. 다음 사.
누나 뭐 얘기할 게 있어? 나는 늘 그 4년 동안 뭐가 바뀌었냐고 하면 난 촬영 기간이 3일밖에 안 되니까 예를 들어서 다른 얘기를 한번 해보자면 내가 서육장을 찍고 나서 서육장 파트 2를 찍고 나서 이제 그 후에 그러니까 그 파트 3가 찍어지는 걸 보면서 이 사람이 영화를 어떻게 대하는지를 너무 그 기간 동안 지켜봤고, 그리고 난 시작한 지 얼마 안 된 상태였으니까 만들어내는 모습을 보면서 나도 영감을 받았다고 해야 되나? 네가 좋아하는 뭔가 그 열정을 간접적으로 느꼈다고 해야 되나? 그래서 같이 감독과 같이 나도 뭔가 한 발 더 꿈을 향해 내딛었다 라는 느낌을 너무 느낄 수 있어서 그게 나한테 성장이었던 것 같아. 내가 이걸 얼마나 더 좋아하는지를 얘를 통해서 알게 되었어. 나한테 그게 성장이야.
생각났어.
정리가 안 돼.
그러면 일단 어차피 얘기했으니까 이것 위해서 그래도 좋았던 것 같아. 한번 그 짧게 이거 정리하고. For Seong-guk, he mentioned the fact that they didn't just work on this film alone over 4 years. 4 years is a long time, right? So each of them also pursued. He was acting in many other films. Taeyang was busy writing. They were all each doing their own thing over that time. So it kind of felt like there were periodic moments when they would come back together and continue it, and that's kind of how it was made. And then Bong-jun's case is a little bit different because his filming actually only took 3 days. So, he filmed it all in 3 days. So he wants to answer the question in a little bit different way.
Sure.
Yeah. He still felt some change over that time. And also, even though the filming was a relatively short period, he got to watch this film develop over, the next few years as they finished the third part. So his big takeaway was that he got to become closer with Taeyang, with his director. And he even asked him, is it okay if I say that you inspired me? Kind of unsure if it's going to embarrass him. But through that, not just the part that he did, but seeing how he makes films, it made him realize that, at least some part of his personal dream can be achieved and realized through this director, through this team, through working on this project. And that was a big takeaway for him.
And that filmmaking isn't linear, every filmmaker has their own method and every film has its own path, which I think is kind of juxtaposed with the characters. Each person has their own path, and each of you had your own path as performers over the years and doing different projects. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about film that I love is that no one film is, even if they have the same plot, is the same because execution is different. And I got that a lot from your characters in that their paths converged and moved in and out, and their experiences were different and shaped them into the people that we saw at the end. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about life. It's just life is unpredictable. It's messy, but it's fun. seeing what divergence we can have, you know, like if life takes me that way, let's see what's going down the alley, you know, like maybe it might be good, maybe it might be bad, but it's going to shape who we are. Like it might make us stronger or like break our hearts, but at the end of the day, at least we went down that path and we experienced it.
어떤 코멘트 해주신 겁니다. 그냥 이런 영화랑 어떤 대답이 이제 느끼면서 자기가 느낀 게 맞아. 뭐 물론 영어처럼 이렇게 인생도 아니면 영화 만들 때도 이렇게 그 선처럼 이렇게 처음부터 끝까지 막 가는 것보다 이렇게 뭐 왔다 갔다 하기도 하고 이렇게 변화하면서 이렇게 바꾸는데 뭐 각자도 자기의 어떤 길 있는 것처럼 또 다시 만나고도 다시 헤어지고 뭐 이런 어떤 변화가면서 이렇게 되는 거 그리고 원래 역사에 있던 뭐 그때 나눴던 어떤 뭔가 이렇게 다시 나오고 그리고 통합도 되고 그러니까 인생은 그렇게 예측할 수 없는 거잖아. 그래서 그런 것처럼 이렇게 이 영화에 있었던 말들 그 씬들 이렇게 피막골 이렇게 빠져가는 것처럼 그런 랜덤한 어떤 찬스 일어나는 거 너무 좋았다.
아까 나 생각이 좀 정리가 됐는데 아까 그 질문에 정리가 됐는데 이 4년 동안 우리가 각자가 얼마나 성장을 했고 혹은 이 영화가 어떻게 발전이 됐고 우리가 어떤 사람이 되었는지가 이 영화가 다큐멘터리는 아니지만 기록이 되어 있다는 느낌을 좀 많이 받아서 영화 속에 나오는 우리 그 자체가 어떤 성장의 기록처럼 보이기도 한다는 얘기를 아까 하고 싶어요. 단어로 설명할 수 없지만 영화 자체가 그냥 그런 기록 같다는 생각도 들고 이 얘기를 하고 싶어요.
어려운데.
갑자기 머리가
So he remembered his answer to the previous question. So we're going back.
It's fine, it's good.
We're going back to
영화 안에서 진짜 캐릭터가 그러잖아. 갑자기 생각나가지고.
Back and forth.
the director wants to remark that this is the character in the character of the film. He's always forgetting, and then like suddenly like, oh, I got it, I remember.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I'm like
Yeah.
I'm the same way.
So his answer was that, and it was so. You know, this film isn't a documentary film about these actors, but in a way it kind of is because it was 4 years. They can see from the beginning to the end their change. It's recorded forever now for anyone to watch, and especially for them to look back on that and be like, wow, like I did change, I did grow in this way, or I did things differently in this way. I look different by the end. You know, it's really almost like a documentary itself about the development of the actors.
Which is reminiscent of the first conversation. The first conversation is about growth. If they were the same people they were the last times they saw each other, you know, like when she pulls out the cigarette, she's like, I guess you have changed. But then at the end, when she's gone, he pulls out the cigarette and it's like, no, he really didn't.
Yeah.
But it's about growth, you know, and that's so like the film is about growth. It's about moving on, about change and everything. So I know we're gonna have to wrap this up. So one question I do want to ask you in particular is about the filming. I watch a lot of Korean films and dramas, and I've never seen Seoul shot this way. I don't think I have. And I think a lot of that is because you make it a very intimate space, and like because you focus like on the alleyways and a lot of the scenes film, and like you focus mainly on 2 characters at a time. It feels like a very intimate place. Like a big city can feel very isolating, but you made it feel like this is a place for 2 people to exist. You know, like an alleyway can be usually is when you're filming in an alleyway it's about fear, you know, it's about instilling fear in the characters, it's about instilling fear in the audience. It's an apprehensive space. But for a lot of their conversations that take place in the alleyways, especially the ones at nights, it doesn't feel like a scary place. You made Seoul feel more like almost like they're in their own living rooms having an intimate conversation. Like this nighttime space isn't dangerous. Like so, I want you to talk about highlighting and showing Seoul or even any cityscape in that way, that saying being outside in the city at night can be a positive experience. You know, it can be a place for intimacy, it can be a place for friendship, it can be a place of reflection.
Thank you.
일단 그 자기가 한국 영화 많이 봤는데 그 많은 영화 중에 이렇게 서울 이런 식으로 좀 보여주는 거 처음이었던 거라고 하시네요. 그러니까 이 2명 통해 주로 이렇게 2명 이렇게 대화하는 식으로 너무 아까도 얘기했는데 인터넷 이렇게 친밀감인데 약간 애인이랑 그런 부분도 있어. 그러니까 둘이 너무 친하고 너무 서로에 알기 때문에 그 좀 깊은 얘기 바로 꺼내고 아니면 가벼운 얘기 해도 좀 깊어. 뭐 이런 인터넷이라고 내가 그런 식으로 번역한다면 그래서 서울은 사실 어떤 도시든 큰 대도시들이 되게 이제 외롭고 뭐 이렇게 좀 크다, 뭐 무섭기도 하고 뭐 이런 감정들이 주로 이제 느꼈을 텐데 또 그거다가 뭐 아마 이제 보통 특히 피막골, 골목길, 다른 영화 뭐 약간 겁을 줄 수 있는 위험, 뭐 거기 가면 막 어둡고 이렇게 느끼는 어떤 요소로 섰다면 여기는 그런 골목이어도 더 깊이, 더 인티메트하게, 더 이렇게 막 마침 이 큰 도시인데 이 영화에서 보여줬던 부분은 그냥 두 명이 도시 배경이지만 그냥 거실에 아니 편하게 이렇게 대화 나누듯이 이렇게 표현, 그러니까 그게 보여주는 게 처음이었고 그래서 본인이 어떻게 소울을 표현하고 싶었는지 이게 맞는 건지 뭐 그거에 대한 아무 코멘트 좀 줄 수 있으면 좋을 것 같아요.
아마도 그렇게 영화가 서울을 표현했던 거는 말씀하셨던 것처럼 서울뿐만 아니라 모든 큰 도시들이 다 비슷할 거라고 생각했어요. 토론토에 처음 와봤지만 토론토 역시도 많은 것들이 지워지고 새롭게 없어지고 하는 것들을 보면서 역시 또 공사장 인부들이 너무 많고 그 와중에 개를 산책시키는 사람도 있고 뭐 열심히 출근하는 사람도 있고 너무나 그 일상적인 것들이 사람의 삶이라는 게 뭐 나라가 달라진다고 해서 크게 진짜 다른 건 아니겠구나 라는 것들을 언제나 생각하고 영화를 만들었는데 영화를 봐주신 분들도 그런 부분들을 느끼신 것 같아요.
내가 먼저 얘기하니? 네가 공간을 어떻게 다룰까에 대해서 되게 고민을 많이 하잖아. 그건 영화적인 너의 고민이고 사실 네가 만들어낸 작품, 그 감독이 만들어낸 작품, 누군가가 만들어낸 작품 속엔 자기 영혼이 들어가 있다고 생각해. 자기 시선, 공간 자체가 아니고 공간을 바라보는 시선. 그러니까 이 감독의 영화는 따뜻한 것 같아요. 그 공간을 바라봤을 때 제가 생각하는 되게 따뜻한 사람이거든. 근데 그 공간에 그 뭔가 멜랑콜리한 감정을 갖고 있는 그 둘이 걸어가니까 그 공간이 차갑지 않고 따뜻한 공간으로 보이고 그런 이야기들이 보이고 그런 이야기들이 쓰여지는 것 같아요. 그건 그냥 이 사람이 그걸 어떻게 연출했고 어떻게 보여주고 싶었지만 결국에 사람들한테 느껴지는 건 이 사람의 마음인 것 같아서 그걸 느끼신 것 같다.
We'll start with Taeyang, the director. So, like you said, in terms of the portrayal of Seoul, yeah, it could be any big city like Toronto. You know, we've been here for a few days, but it's the same. Things are changing, things are being built, things are being broken down. There's construction,
Continuous construction.
constantly changing. And there's people out walking their dogs at night. People are going to work in the morning. It's the kind of scene that you see anywhere in any big city, and that's kind of what he wanted to portray. And Bong-jun had a comment that Taeyang is often concerned with how he's going to portray the spaces in his film. He thinks a lot about the setting itself, and he wanted to mention, he wanted to highlight how, with any director, it's not just the space itself that you're going to portray, but the way that he looks at the space. So his own perception is what makes it into the film in the end. And so Taeyang, you can probably already feel from this interview, but he's a very warm-hearted, sincere person. And that's naturally what Seoul kind of came across as, through his perception of the city, through his view. He sees it through his eyes.
It does, because as I mentioned before we began, I was in Busan, then Jeonju, but I actually went to Seoul. I stayed 3 days in Seoul, and my last day in Seoul, I got lost. But I that was at night. I had just come back from a concert, and I couldn't find where I was staying, and I was walking through the different alleyways, and like those streets are confusing. But I felt the same thing that you conveyed in the film, because like the lighting is very warm. Like the lighting in Seoul is different to here in Toronto at night, because it's very bright. and everything. But I felt like I was just like having an adventure, and the film is like that. These characters are having an adventure, just walking and being very comfortable in where they are. You know, they don't feel threatened, and I love that you make the film, that you make Seoul look like that. That it feels just like a comfortable place to be in, because that's how I felt. Even though I was lost for like half an hour, I felt comfortable. I didn't feel apprehensive at any time. So when I saw that in the film, I was like, I've had that experience. You know, just I wish I hadn't been lost, but at least I found the corn dog being able to do it. But you have to wrap it now. But thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. 감사합니다. I love the film, and I can't wait to see what you do afterwards. 축하해요. 4 years success. It's over.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we will wrap up.
So everyone, that was another episode of Carolyn Talks for the 2023 Toronto International Film Festival. And today I was joined by director Kim Taeyang and lead cast Lee Myung-ha, Seong-guk, and Park Bong-jun to talk about their film Mimang, which is it's a very interesting film about conversations, the type of conversations you would have with people who move in and out of your life at, it seems, random points of time, but like for very specific reasons. And sometimes some conversations seem mundane, but then when you think about them, they're not. And they're really deep, and they're also really funny and introspective and interesting, and sometimes random. You know, that's how life is. Sometimes the best interactions we have with people are just like random conversations about sometimes nothing, and then random conversations about things like that happened in our past, and we wonder what happened with this particular situation. Was something that you discussed like maybe 10, 5, even 2 years ago, and then you discuss about what's happening in your life now. So I just love that this film is about these very intimate conversations and these very transient I guess we could say lines of dialogue, because it was like the dialogue was written, you know, so like it's not like just random conversations between the cast. But I really liked it, and I really enjoyed the setting and how he showed Seoul at night. It was very different to a lot of the films and dramas that I've seen. I would say the one drama that I really thought of when I watched this film and how he shoots Seoul at night is a drama called Something in the Rain, and it's a romance drama. There's a character in there that I can't stand. I hate that character, but the actress was fantastic. But the reason I think about it is because there's these very quiet conversations and these quiet walks that the characters have sometimes at night. And it's not in Seoul. It's located in a smaller city, I think. But like I just love how like they both show the quiet sides of Seoul, and that walking through an alley can be a safe space to talk about something, whereas in normal films and dramas, walking through an alley at night is a potentially dangerous situation. So that's a bit of a offshoot of Ramble, but it kind of ties into the film. So that was Mimang, and I really enjoyed talking to them, and I think they were all so great. I'm always very happy when I get to talk to both the cast and the directors for projects. It does not always happen. And so it was great to have all 4 of them there to join me. And right now I'm in Korea, so I'm recording this in Korea because I'm here attending the Busan International Film Festival. Yay! A little dream come true. And I'm looking forward to meeting Kim Taeyang again, and also his interpreter Mark. Mark did a great job interpreting for the interview, and I always have to acknowledge our interpreters and translators, because it is not an easy job, especially for an interview with me and also for so it was very interesting. It was a very fun interview as well. And I want to just thank the cast and Mark for being there, and for Kim Taeyang. I'm looking forward to meeting him here in Busan. I'm looking forward to my coverage for that for K Crush America magazine. That's the same website that I covered the Busan International Short Film Festival and the Jeonju Festival earlier this year in April and early May. And what else? You can also continue to look forward to more of my episodes for the 2023 Toronto International Film Festival being published. I kind of took a break on publishing those because I had to get ready for BIFF. I was gonna say booth for BIFF and everything. So I kind of like put a pause on that coverage. So this episode is going to be the first one that I published since the last interview that I did, which was Bad Boy, which is an Israeli series that I'm really looking forward to seeing the remainder of it. So you have 2 lines of film festivals to look forward to me covering, TIFF and also BIFF. And as usual, you can find the video versions of my interviews on my YouTube channel. That's at youtube.com/Carolyn_Hines. You can go to my R3 page where you can find links for both the podcast and YouTube channels and for previous episodes and all of my published writing, film analysis. There's a piece that I wrote for Kofic for the K-Movie today about the Korean films that showed at the festival and what I thought of them, and as well as the new case story fund that was released there. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at CarrieCNH12. That's CarrieCNH12. Forgive me, my brain is a little bit I'm trying to remember because I'm still kind of tired. I've been here only 2 days, so my brain is still on Toronto time. So my memory is not the best it could be right now, and I'm very tired and I'm awake. I it's very early here now that I'm doing this, but I don't mind it. It's totally worth it. This is a little dream come true for me being here in Busan to cover the film festival. So I appreciate my EIC at K-Crush, Denny's, for giving me this opportunity. Denny's, you're great. You're fantastic. You're the best. And you find links there on my R3 page. That's AUTHO. Oh my God. I'm so sorry, everyone. AUTHORY.com/Carolyn Hines. Yeah, that's it. And I'm gonna cut my spiel here for now. Until the next episode of Carolyn Talks, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.